run away enough so he doesn't tackle me down and finish me off. So I'm going to harass him. I'm going to call him names. I'm going to slap him in behind the head. And he might get at me once in a while and get a lucky punch in, but I'm going to make sure he does not grab me and take me to the ground in a major fight because I have no shot. So that was the strategy. So in a long series of hit and run skirmishes, General Greene harasses General Cornwallis and his British Army, and each skirmish results in what you'd call a loss for the colonists. But Greene, when asked about this strategy, this is what he said, and I want you to listen to this and see what he means. We fight, we get knocked down, we lose, we get up, and we fight again. Now think about that. We fight, I'm fighting Morgan. He might knock me down, and I might lose that engagement, but I'm not letting him jump on me. I'm getting back up, and I'm going to be able to fight again. So that's the strategy they're using here, basically trying to tire out the British Army like Muhammad Ali tired out George Foreman in that fight. Okay? Now, I'll tell you what, this Greene was smart. He forced General Cornwallis to chase him and the Patriots completely through North Carolina. And he's taken him away, several hundred miles away from what? British, what? Supply lines, pretty close, very close. So Greene is hitting and running, and he's retreating and retreating and retreating, and here comes Cornwallis. He keeps coming at him, coming at him, and pretty soon Cornwallis and the British forces realize, hey, we're hundreds of miles away from our supply bases. Okay? Well, this turns out to be a brilliant strategic move on the part of General Greene, because without supplies, the Redcoats grow weaker and weaker, while Greene's forces get more and more militiamen to join him as they're going through North Carolina. Does that make sense? So here's Cornwallis and his men get miles and miles and miles away from supplies, and as Greene is backing up, hitting in the face and backing up and getting knocked down once in a while and getting hit in the face and backing up, pretty soon he's getting more men from the northern part of Carolina to join him, and Cornwallis is a long way away from his supply lines. So on March 15th, 1781, what does Greene choose to do now that he's got reinforcements in the northern part of North Carolina and Cornwallis and the British Army are a long ways from supplies and they're growing weaker? What does he decide to do for the first time? Attack. For the first time. So on March 15th, 1781, General Greene decides it's time for this major battle or major showdown with the British. And it happens at Guilford Courthouse in North Carolina. So again, as General Cornwallis and his troops have been basically suckered to follow General Greene and the Patriots miles away from their supply lines, while General Greene is getting more reinforcements and more people joining his militia, as they get to Guilford Courthouse in North Carolina on March 15th, 1781, Greene decides it's time for a major showdown. Well, the Patriots stop running and turn around and stand toe-to-toe to Morgan Tigner, saying, you know, Morgan, I wore you out. You are George Foreman. I am Muhammad Ali, and now it's my time, buddy. That's exactly what he did. Well, Greene's taking a chance, because if his army gets defeated at Guilford Courthouse, South is lost to the British, and the war is more than likely going to be over. So he throws everything he has at the exhausted Redcoats, including the one-man army, Peter Francisco. Okay? So Greene takes a chance. He turns and stands toe-to-toe. He throws everything he has in a last-ditch effort against the exhausted Redcoats, including the one-man army, Peter Francisco. This is a great story. So Francisco is on horseback with only his sword, and he is swinging that thing in every direction during each time he charges the British soldiers. This great big 6'6", 280-pound man has only a sword in his hand, and I mean he is charging these British soldiers and just swiping that sword every which way. In one single charge, he kills 11 redcoats with his sword. In one charge. One single charge, Peter Francisco kills 11 redcoats. Well, this is true, during that charge in which he kills 11 redcoats, he is bayoneted in the leg by a British soldier. You know what that means? Soldiers have a bayonet, it's like a knife on the end of their rifles, often used to finish off the enemy. Well, as he is riding his horse in that charge in which he kills 11 redcoats, he is bayoneted in the leg by a British soldier, and it pins his leg against what? His horse. Pins him right against his horse. Well, Francisco promptly helps the redcoat withdraw the bayonet from his leg and his horse and kills the soldier and then makes his escape from that charge. So during that charge, which he killed 11 redcoats, his leg was bayoneted through his leg into his horse, and he grabbed that soldier's rifle with the soldier on the end of it, the British soldier, and pulled that bayonet out of his leg and out of his horse, killed the guy, and escaped. Now, in this battle, approximately 600 redcoats had either been killed or wounded. 600 compared to the Patriot casualties of less than 300. Okay? So at the end of the battle at Guilford Courthouse, approximately 600 redcoats had been either killed or wounded, compared to the Patriot casualties of less than 300. Well, once Greene sees he's kicked some butt, rather than engage anymore, what does he do? Withdraws. So he doesn't have any more killed because the damage has been done. So with this victory at Guilford Courthouse in North Carolina, the Americans have slammed the brakes on the British advance to the south. And so the British, a little surprised by what has happened, Cornwallis and his army, they marched north into Virginia to regroup. So after the Battle of Guilford Courthouse, the British, licking their wounds, marched north into Virginia to regroup. And it will be in Virginia where the end game of the American Revolution will unfold. So the end game of the American Revolution will finally unfold in Virginia. Which takes us to our next subtopic, which is the Battle of Yorktown. What a great story this is, too. The Battle of Yorktown. This is a great story. You all heard of Yorktown before? I bet you haven't heard this story. In 1781, the American Army has finally reversed the Redcoats' momentum in the South. Okay, they win the battle at Guilford Courthouse. The Redcoats are in Virginia regrouping. And in 1781, we're looking fairly good. We mentioned that British General Cornwallis and his army have marched north into Virginia to regroup. And for the first time in several years, General Washington has the British Army on the run. First time in several years, he's got the British Army retreating. Okay? Now, this is when I'm back with Morgan. Okay? And I kind of set him up and got him kind of weak, and I punched him a few times and I didn't give him the knockout punch. He's not feeling very good. I kind of knocked him around a little bit in the Battle of Guilford Courthouse, but he's retreated back to his, home to try to get regrouped, and I'm pretty happy about where I've got him set. Now what am I looking for? Because I'm George Washington. Yeah, I'm looking for the knockout punch on Morgan, because I've set him up. So Washington needs this knockout punch, but he knows he can't do it. He's a tough guy. I can't beat him up by myself. So So I'm going to go get one of my friends to help me. In this case, George Washington's going to look to who to help him get this knockout punch? The French. Did you say friends? Yeah, French. The French, because they're ready to help us now. It took him some time. So Washington's going to try to get a knockout punch against the British, but he knows he can't do it by himself. He needs the help of our French allies. Now, since the French allies had joined the American cause, although it took time, they have contributed supplies in about 6,000 men. So there are about 6,000 Frenchmen in the American colonies helping the American side against the British by now, by 1781. However, the French are getting a little bit nervous here because what have they seen? Are they seeing a lot of victories? No. And they're about ready to wonder if the cost of helping Americans is worth the lack of progress on the part of the Patriots. So Washington, to keep the French from heading home, because this is when he needs them the most, he's got to hit what we call a military grand slam to continue to get the French to be involved. Because if they don't see a big knockout victory here, they're going to leave. And he doesn't think we can clean it up and win without it. So the cost of helping the Americans is getting a little expensive, and the lack of progress on the part of the Patriots has the French considering heading for home. So Washington wants to take these 6,000 men and use them to try to get one final knockout punch. He needs a military grand slam to continue to get French aid and save the revolution. Now this is where things just turn around again. We had so many lucky breaks here. This is when a Virginia slave by the name of James Armistead is going to step in to help Washington, quote, and we're using some baseball terms here, load the bases. Because what does Washington need? A military grand slam. Well, in order to get a grand slam, what do you got to do? Got to have the bases loaded, right? Well, we don't have the bases loaded, but a Virginia slave by the name of James Armistead is going to help General Washington load the bases so he can get this grand slam victory. Now, there are a lot of slaves in the colonies right now, but who are they siding with? And they should, because we screwed them over bad. Who are they siding with in this, most of them? British. Because the British have promised, if we win the Revolutionary War, what are we going to do? Free you. Are we promising that? And we sure as hell didn't promise it, because we're going to be talking about slavery clear through the Civil War, right? We're going to have a civil war over this issue. So the slaves, or black slaves, they didn't have much confidence that the Americans were going to help them in any way. So most of the black slaves at this time in 1781 were siding with the British, because they were promised freedom that would result if they remained loyal to Britain. Well, James Armistead was a black slave, and General Cornwallis thought he was a loyal British servant. In other words, Armistead didn't come out as a spy either way, either side. He was a servant that worked for who? Who did he serve? General Cornwallis. Okay? So Cornwallis just simply saw James Armistead as a loyal British servant, and he trusted Armistead, and so did all the officers that were around Cornwallis when they made their camps. They all trusted. Armistead was with Cornwallis as his loyal servant, bringing him his tea, his brandy, his food, whatever. Well, Armistead, unbeknownst to Cornwallis, is actually a Patriot spy. And he not only is a spy, he's recruited several other slaves to work with him on the American side. Unbeknownst to who? Cornwallis. So Cornwallis has a bunch of slave servants that are actually American spies, working for the Americans. Well, Cornwallis is in Virginia regrouping. What does General Washington need to know to load the bases? Once he regroups, where's he going, right? So General Washington needs to know which direction General Cornwallis and his troops are heading in Virginia if he's going to plan the knockout punch. Well, as the British are in Virginia, as he's serving Cornwallis and his officers, what is he doing? He's listening to what the plans are, and he's passing this information directly on to Washington? No, through what? Those other slave spies that he's recruited. So as the British plan their strategy on what they're doing in Virginia, Armistead carefully listens and he passes valuable information to other slaves serving as spies. Now these slaves actually don't report directly to Washington. Who do they give their information to? Anybody want to guess that we talked about? Who then's going to pass it on? Now, Gret, let me preface this by saying the person that these slaves are going to report this information to is a commander who's leading American forces, and they're shadowing Cornwallis's army in Virginia. Shadowing means they're keeping an eye on. They're trying to figure out where they're going. So who are these black slaves taking this information to that is commanding American troops, and he's shadowing Cornwallis's army in Virginia? What? One more time? No, he's an American. Now, the reason I said he's commanding American troops is I'm thinking that maybe the hint would be that he's not American. Lafayette, very good. So Marcus de Lafayette is actually, he's a 23-year-old French commander, and he is commanding American forces that are shadowing Cornwallis's army in Virginia, trying to figure out where in the world they're going. So Armistead gets this information directly from the British officers as they discuss it. He passes it on to these other slaves that are spies, and they're taking the information directly to Commander Marcus de Lafayette. It would make more sense to give it to him because he's shadowing Cornwallis's army. So it'd be easier to get that information to him. And you've been very good, so tomorrow I'll tell you what they find out. Okay? Tomorrow we'll tell you what we find out. Perfect. Give me a little break. Nice job. So, you get the fact that you got your Nancy Harts, you got your John Honeymans, you got your Peter Franciscos, all of these people, your Sybil Luddingtons that nobody knows about, that maybe we do not succeed in the American Revolution if we don't have these people that are providing help. Okay? And James Armistead is going to be no different than the others. He's going to be very, very important here.